In the manga world, there is one that stands tall above all others, and that is Berserk. A manga so famous and beloved that you don't even need to have ever read a manga before to have heard of it. And unsurprisingly, it features what is perhaps the most famous arc to ever exist in a manga, the Golden Age arc. The second arc, which acts as a prequel to the Black Swordsman arc that preceded it. The Golden Age arc details the events that led to Guts being the one-armed, one-eyed, but not a pirate ball of wrath and almost insanity that he is. It also illustrates the strong bond between Guts and Griffith, and what results in Griffith becoming Guts' greatest enemy and one of the most iconic villains in fiction. And on top of all this, it features one of the most memorable scenes that I've ever witnessed, the Eclipse. Experiencing this arc for the first time when I read it recently was one of the greatest viewing experiences that I've ever had, and what I read in this manga will likely stick with me forever. In my last Berserk video, where I discussed my thoughts on the Black Swordsman arc, a video which I'll link in both the description of this video and at the end of this video too, should you wish to check it out, I said this. Berserk is often heralded as the greatest manga to ever exist, and is described as objectively being a masterpiece, and I'm sure I'll get to that point too, but I don't want to start saying that Berserk is a masterpiece when I've only just begun. The other reason I'm saying all this is because I'm expecting to turn around and say to all of you that Berserk is a masterpiece. Maybe it will be after the Golden Age arc, or maybe it will be even further after that, but I feel like me saying that will have even more of an effect if you know that I liked but didn't love the first arc. Also reading this well now guys, I turn around to you to tell you that Berserk is indeed a masterpiece. The Golden Age arc is incredible, and I think for me to fully explain why I feel the way I do, I will need to go into heavy spoilers. I didn't need to do it for the Black Swordsman arc, but I do here. So this is your one and only spoiler warning. The Golden Age arc is centered around three major characters, Guts, Griffith and Casca. All three go on their own character journeys, and all three are both integral to this arc and the future of this manga. Since we already discussed him in the last video, let's begin with Guts. Whilst the Black Swordsman arc didn't particularly blow my socks off, that wasn't due to Guts' character in any way. From the very beginning of this manga, I found Guts to be a very compelling and three-dimensional character, and I love that this arc further expanded on that and revealed the often tragic reasons behind some of Guts' more strange personality traits. Whilst I actually did find the beginning of this arc to not be too mind-blowing, I'd put it on a par with the Black Swordsman's arc quality, I think the very first few chapters of this arc, where we follow Guts as a child, were fantastic. I don't think I've ever felt so much sympathy for a fictional character as I have Guts. You know when on Twitter they do the whole, name a character that went through more pain than this character, it's okay, I'll wait. I feel like if you did that with Guts, then you'd genuinely be waiting for all eternity. Guts has the worst life that I've ever seen, and that orphaness began from day one. How many other characters were literally born from a corpse? The characters referring to this as a bad omen is the biggest understatement of all time, considering what happens to Guts from here on out. These first few chapters don't just show Guts' origins, but also perfectly explain two of his quirks. Guts does not like being touched, and I have never once questioned his haphiphobia before. I just assumed it was due to being stalked by the demons of hell and his distrust for people. But as it turns out, in one of the most shocking scenes in the entire manga, Guts gets raped by one of his should-be allies, whilst he's still a child by the way, after he's sold out by his father figure just to make matters worse. Guts loves Gambino, the man he views like a father, and yet all Gambino ever did was mistreat Guts. He sold Guts' body for a few measly coins. Experiencing such a vile act at such a young age makes it very clear why Guts hates physical contact and touch, and also why he's so disconnected from people. His trust in others had been broken almost irreparably. This event also explains another aspect of Guts' character, his love of revenge and inflicting pain on those that he hates. On the first mission after he is raped, Guts waits until Donovan, the man who raped him, is by himself and out of earshot of any allies, and he kills him. But he doesn't just kill him, it's not a swift death, but a slow one where Guts is able to develop a liking for enacting revenge and hurting those that have hurt him. It's a scene very reminiscent of the one where Guts slowly tortures and kills the snake demon from early on in the Black Swordsman arc. Now we understand why Guts does this and why Guts likes this. We've all to some degree want to see someone we dislike fail or trip up, whether that be someone we know personally who's just a terrible person, or someone in the media like an actor or politician. Now imagine if that person had done something truly horrific to you personally. Wouldn't you want revenge? And if you did get it, wouldn't it feel good? And let's not forget Guts is a child here. He is far more likely to give in to his urges and far more likely to develop a taste for killing and torturing those that have wronged him. These first few chapters that focus solely on Guts really made me understand Guts on an even deeper level. The Black Swordsman arc did a really good job of pulling you into Guts' world and getting you to understand why he acts the way that he does. But these chapters really pulled me into Guts' character and mentality. A great character became even greater, and this arc really cemented the feeling I had of wanting to see Guts be happy. I want nothing more than to see Guts just crack a smile or let out a hearty laugh. Guts may do bad things in this series, such as assassinating people on Griffith's orders, but you never feel like he deserves what befalls him. Yeah, he may get little moments of happiness such as being a part of the Hawks, but he deserves so much more than that. And it's so sad watching as he slowly worsens as a person and consistently resorts to violence. And yet Berserk is so genuinely well written that not only do you understand why Guts is the way that he is, but you also at times egg him on to do these acts. When Guts kills the man who tortured Griffith, I'm not clutching my pearls going, "Oh Guts, how could you?" I'm screaming, "That's what he deserves!" Like I said earlier, we've all wanted to see someone suffer, even if that person is fictional. And Berserk is able to walk that tightrope between making me root for Guts, but also make me want to see him put down the sword forever. Guts is a very unique protagonist, and it is very easy to see how he's become so iconic and beloved over the years. There is so much more beneath the surface with this character. The next major character of this arc is Griffith. Now Griffith is famous in the anime and manga community for being very misunderstood. Some people think that he's pure evil, but then you have the intellectuals that truly understand his character and writing. See, Griffith in reality didn't do anything wrong, and I'm kinda sick of people pretending like he did. He may have sacrificed all his friends, allies and loved ones so that he could become some kind of red bird man, but you know, sometimes in life you've got to make sacrifices to succeed. Okay, I'm obviously joking. Griffith is evil, but also a great character too. Now to be completely honest, I wasn't really clicking with Griffith for a good chunk of this arc. I don't know if it was because Griffith wears so many facades that I was never really sure how he truly felt or what he was thinking, or maybe it's because I was really connecting with both Guts and Casca, or perhaps it's because a lot of Griffith scenes near the start of the arc were scenes that I'd already seen in the 90s anime. That is why I feel like a lot of the beginning of the manga didn't quite hit as strong with me as the later sections, because I'd already experienced them to some degree in an animated format. Although I do think that overall, including the start of this arc, the pacing is a lot stronger than the Black Swordsman arc. When I read the Black Swordsman arc, I didn't think the pacing was that great, but I wasn't sure if it was because of the book or if it was because of how fast I was reading it. After going through the Golden Age arc, I now know it was the book itself. But regardless of all that, Griffith, for whatever reason, just wasn't clicking with me. He definitely had some good moments and character beats. For example, I really enjoyed everything that occurs between him and that perverted king. The first one, not the second one. You know Berserk is messed up when I refer to a character as perverted king, and it's not necessarily clear who I'm referring to, but I like that these scenes showcase Griffith's drive and ambition and willingness to do anything to achieve his dreams, even selling his own body. Like with Guts and his occasional dips into the revenge pond, I was really glad when Griffith got his revenge by killing the king. The Golden Age arc really excels at political intrigue and political plotting. It should go without saying that these sections of the manga only apply to Griffith's character. Guts is too much of a meathead to get involved in any of that. It was these political sections that really warmed me up to Griffith's character, and the moment he killed the Queen was when he truly clicked with me. And from that point on, I accepted him as a genuinely great character. His dastardly plan was truly clever, and I got to see the mask slip off. And if all this politicking was what got me to enjoy his character, then it was his torture that made me really care for and root for him. Griffith's torture is awful, and I really felt a lot of sympathy for him, not just because of the horrific act inflicted upon him, but also because of what that meant to Griffith. This torture would be undeniably terrible for anyone, but for a man like Griffith, someone with dreams and aspirations that he actually strives to achieve, this is a fate potentially worse than death. A fact hammered home when he very nearly does decide to kill himself and end his suffering. The torture also has a knock-on effect on the other characters, especially Guts, who feels guilty for abandoning Griffith. Now though, Guts probably regrets ever going back to save him. I honestly just felt so sorry for Griffith, and whilst I do think that the majority of people who say that Griffith didn't do anything wrong are just joking around, I do see how some people could potentially view his actions later on as justified. At the very least, they are understandable, and as evil as the deed is, Griffith sacrificing all those around him felt like something his character had been built up to actually consider doing. The Eclipse is peak, by the way. I don't throw that word around lightly unless I'm struggling to come up with a YouTube thumbnail or title. But that is exactly what the Eclipse is. Peak. The Eclipse is the most horrifying thing that I've ever read and will stick with me forever. There are certain manga panels that have been burned into my retina, and this part of the arc will live rent-free in my mind. No wonder Guts hates Griffith after all this malarkey. Griffith truly has become pure evil, and I could not be more thankful for Skull Knight coming to the rescue. A character who, by the way, looks really cool. The manga art does continue to be incredible, and all the monster and creature designs are so unique and horrifically beautiful. Also, I love how all the knights have animal armour for some reason. But anyway, we should be eternally grateful to Skull Knight, otherwise Guts and Casca would have ended up just like the rest of the Band of the Hawk. Speaking of which, I do wish that this manga did more with the Band of the Hawk. We only learn about a few of the members, and even the ones we do learn about didn't leave too great of an impact on me. Weirdly, I actually thought that Berserk ever had a long-running anime, then it may genuinely have benefited from some filler. Filler where we get to learn about more of the Band of the Hawk's members, maybe get some anime original characters. I think it would really make Griffith's betrayal even worse when we see all those filler characters that we might care about die horribly. Because as great as the Eclipse is, the deaths of the Band of the Hawks didn't really affect me too much because it's basically a bunch of nameless, faceless characters dying horribly. It would have been cool to see more recognisable faces during these panels. The Band of the Hawks survived for so long after being made fugitives, and they even risked their lives to go back and save Griffith, and how does he repay them? By sacrificing them all. I think had we known about more of the members, then that feeling of betrayal would have been further heightened, although I did really like Judeau. Whilst I do think more could have been done with the Band of the Hawks, I also think that Judeau was a fantastic supporting character, and his death made me genuinely sad. Also, I am happy that Rickert survived and was able to avoid the whole Eclipse ordeal, and I am interested to see what the manga does with his character going forward. So we've discussed both Guts and Griffith already, now it's time we turn our attention to Casca. This may be a surprise to hear, but I actually enjoyed Casca's character journey the most out of the three major characters in this arc. Casca's journey is all about accepting herself and accepting that she is a woman. This is very much a man's world, and every opponent that Casca comes across looks down upon her. So it's not really a surprise that she also looks down upon herself and loathes herself for being a woman too. What I think makes Casca's character work so perfectly is that she's so girly. I feel that a lot of other writers would have had Casca be this strong independent woman type character, a character who would hate themselves for being born a woman, but would still be really strong and powerful, and the story would not be them accepting themselves, but instead them realising that it's the world that needs to accept them, and they're actually perfect and don't make any mistakes, and are always right too. That is not who Casca is or how she was written to be. Casca's journey reminded me of an episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's the episode where the gang go to Kyoshi Island, and Sokka is really sexist towards the Kyoshi warriors and end up showing him just how strong they actually are. And there's a line near the end of the episode that I think really applies to Casca's character.
I treated you like a girl when I should have treated you like a warrior.
I am a warrior. But I'm a girl too.
That is the lesson that Casca learns. She believes she can only be one or the other, but not both, and she despises her girly nature. The way she stands, her beauty, the fact that she does get very emotional, it all bothers her, and she believes it makes her less of a warrior. So much so that she feels this need to prove herself, despite being accepted by the rest of the Band of the Hawks. Not only do the Band of the Hawks accept Casca as one of their own, but they also all recognise her as the best warrior in the Hawks after both Guts and Griffith. They even have no qualms about her leading the group in the absence of both Guts and Griffith. Her insecurity and self-loathing is something that she has, for the most part, developed by herself, and it's not something that the people around her push on her. And I like that Casca's need to prove her worth as a warrior is treated as a weakness in her character and not a strength. Due to being on her period, Casca is not feeling at her best during a certain battle, and it nearly gets both her and Guts killed. In fact, this was the part of the manga where I really started to love Berserk. Guts killing 100 men is cool, and Casca's development is incredible. This isn't just the start of Casca beginning to accept herself as she is, but also when she begins to accept Guts and develops feelings for him. Feelings that even overall her strong affection and lust for Griffith. Casca's growing love for Guts really aids her character development and change. Because she wants to be with him, she no longer despises her feminine attributes, and in some ways even grows to appreciate these things about herself. There is a lot of sex in this arc, and usually I hate sex scenes. I used to think that there was absolutely no point to them. Oftentimes it feels like any information we learn from a sex scene could have been revealed to the audience in a different and less gratuitous way. The sex scene between Guts and Casca completely changed my view on that. The sex scene between these two characters is one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen, and I felt myself get swept up in the emotions of the scene. This scene is the literal climax of not just their romance and relationship, but also Casca's arc. Casca has finally accepted both herself as a woman and her feelings for Guts. There is no way that this could have been conveyed so perfectly and thematically if the characters didn't have sex. Casca is allowing herself to be a woman and for Guts to be her man, so to speak. She is dropping all the walls between them and letting him in. Not only that, but by committing this act, she's also finally discarding her feelings for Griffith and committing herself to Guts and choosing him. She's letting Guts embrace her and be the person who sees the vulnerable sides of her. She doesn't need to pretend anymore. She is a warrior, but also a woman. And nothing but a sex scene would have put all this across as well as it did. She's bearing all to Guts, both figuratively and literally. What makes this sex scene so incredible is that it doesn't just further Casca's character, but Guts's too. Remember, Guts was raped as a boy and has developed a phobia of touching others. During the sex, Guts is reminded of his rape and has to relive his trauma, and it results in him stopping having sex with Casca. He has to turn away and goes to leave. But Casca stops him. She's accepted herself and him. It's time he does the same. He needs to open himself up to her and let her in. Guts already knows so much about Casca, and now he needs to tell her about himself and his trauma, and he does. Guts initially had sex with Casca so he could comfort her when she was at her lowest, and now she is doing the same for him. She shows that she's accepted him and wants to know everything about him. So Guts does just that. He opens himself up and accepts her embrace. And so you have this scene of the two of them accepting absolutely everything about each other and becoming one. Again, how could you present all of this in anything but a sex scene? And this moment of peace is really impactful because it's so far removed from all the horror that Guts is usually dealing with. For just a few pages, Guts can think of something other than violence. I said earlier that I now consider Berserk a masterpiece. This is the scene that made me think that. I finally let Berserk into my heart and accepted it for what it was, a masterpiece. Now that I've spoken about my favourite thing in this arc, it's time I mentioned my least favourite. There was a lot of rape in this arc and women getting their clothes torn off, including Casca. My criticism of this manga, as controversial as it might be to say, is that sometimes I think this manga can go too far. Now this is only every now and then. 95% of the time I think this depraved, awful stuff works. It fits Berserk's world and the story we're being told. Horrific stuff like rape, murder and mutilation is going to occur in this world, and I like that the manga doesn't shy away from it. Guts' rape, for example, is very significant to his character and his arc in this story. But every now and then I did feel like horrible things were happening for the sake of it. I'm specifically referring to the Black Dogs guy and that part of the manga. Now obviously he's a demon, so of course he's going to do bad things, but here it felt very gratuitous, especially what he does to Casca. She got her top ripped off and boobs revealed so many times in this manga, and this was the one time where I felt like this didn't need to happen. Not just because it felt unnecessary, especially with his tongue dick cactus thing going near her, but also because it robs Casca of her agency because she keeps having to be saved by Guts. Casca works because she is both a warrior and a woman. I think this part would have worked better had we seen her as the warrior. This was definitely the low point of the arc for me, but there's probably something that I'm not seeing here. I also think it would have been better to not have this happen with Casca, as she ends up going through something similar, yet far worse, during the Eclipse. So the manga was repeating itself a little in my opinion, and it didn't really need to because Griffith's rape of Casca was just as emotionally affecting as her sex scene with Guts, but for opposite reasons. The rape scene was just so long and draining and exhausting, it felt like it was never going to end, and I felt myself getting tearful. I cared so much for both Guts and Casca, so to see them go through hell broke my heart. And it wasn't just the act that deeply saddened me, but the aftermath of it too. Understandably, what Casca went through severely affected her mental state, and now she has lost her mind. She no longer recognises anyone, and similarly to Guts after his rape, she won't let anyone touch her, specifically men, which means she is afraid of Guts and won't let him near her. The one person that Guts opened himself up to, the one person he let inside, the one person he let embrace him and touch him, now won't let him touch her. There is legitimately no character that's ever suffered as much as Guts. Berserk is a masterpiece. This arc alone confirms that. The heights that this manga has already reached are heights that many of a piece of entertainment could only dream of coming close to. This series takes an unfiltered look at its world and has crafted the perfect balance between both horror and beauty. Now I know what you're thinking, did I miss Puck? In my last video, I joked about Puck getting a cameo in this arc. To my actual surprise, he did appear. And you know what? I did miss the little guy, and I can't wait to see more of him in the Conviction arc, which I will start reading the moment this video releases. But that will have to do for today. Let me know your thoughts about both Berserk and the Golden Age arc in the comments below, and do be sure to leave a like whilst you're down there, and don't forget to subscribe too. I'll cry if you don't. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye!
何千何万という敵味方の中で唯一お前だけが俺に夢を忘れさせた。捧げ